I'm Jim Check. It's October 9th, Thursday, 9 o'clock. Well, 9:02. We're a couple minutes late as we were trying to get ready here. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor up there in the nation's capital in Ottawa. Kind of a cloudy, hazy day here. But the big news, though, Trump lives up to the peace through strength motto of his. And Trump and Rubio take center stage. Oh, Joly, auto sector in trouble. Keystone XL back on the table. And is Tim Hodgson the king of tout? Bill C-18 crushed media during the election. Liberal senator takes on role as Mr. Potter. Your rights under attack. BC, a hot mess. And reporter cures herself of TDS. Is there hope for everybody in that? And silver soars. The Hunt brothers back in the hunt, I guess, eh? All that and a lot more on the really big show. But we got lots here. But the first thing is the big news. The big news, like as Trump would say, the big news in 3,000 years, or I don't know how he does it, how he does his hands and all that stuff, but maybe you could do that impersonation.
You just got to play the accordion, that's all.
But it is big news. It is big news. We don't want to make light of it. He put out a Truth Social last night, proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of the peace plan. That means all the hostages will be released very soon. I think they're targeting Monday night. And Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, and all the surrounding nations, and the United States of America, and we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and those who worked on it. Blessed are the peacemakers. And he's sharing some of the credit this time, so there you go. Big deal, though. An absolute big deal.
It's massive. It's huge for Israel. I mean, I obviously wrote that little thing there, and the reason I said joy for many in Israel, there are people in Israel, you have to remember, and that's true in the Arab world, in Gaza, the Islamic world, who are not happy about this. They wanted the fight to continue. There are some real hardcore nutbags in Israel that just wanted to keep going and going and going. And we all know, obviously, that that's true in Hamas and among the extremists in the Islamic world. But thankfully, the cool heads prevailed. And I think Trump obviously has threatened them, hasn't he? He's threatened Hamas in particular.
But Sunday,
and
right?
we know that because he did that in public.
Yeah.
But one can presume also, I think one can presume and probably should presume that he's also threatened the Israelis. But because they're so close-knit, they're such tight chums, we're not going to hear about that till the memoirs are out, probably, unless somebody leaks it. But to have achieved this, I think Trump would have had to strong-arm Netanyahu a bit, because I was talking about those nutters in Israel. Some of those nutters are in his cabinet, form part of his political coalition. So, that was the sticking point. But, and fingers crossed anyway. It is the Middle East, as people in Israel and the Middle East like to tell you all the time. It's the Middle East. Like, things are different there. So let's hope that it really is going to actually happen. It looks like it is. But especially good for the families of the hostages. It must be said. It's 2 years they've been in torment.
And this is clearly a demonstration of what he said earlier on, peace through strength. And there's two demonstrations of this now. One with Iran, that thing ended fairly quickly when they flew those B-2 bombers over there and dropped those bombs on a target, and then ended that war in a hurry. And then this deadline of you have till Sunday to get something done. And they've lived up to that peace through strength. And I get the world's a better place today for it. And we got some reaction from the White House Post here, and this is with some of the former hostages that have been released earlier, and Trump is talking to them there at the White House. Let's listen in on this.
I want to say something. Is that all right? All right, hold on. President Trump, you have the best crowd in the world. What do you guys have to say to President Trump?
Thank you.
Thank
you.
You did it!
Wow.
You did it!
Wow.
Thank you!
This is amazing.
Mr. President, we believe in you. We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We also have a little reaction here. Just this is Fox News. They kind of summarize what's happening and kind of the timeline. Let's listen in on like how Fox kind of lays out the timeline and what's supposed to happen in the next 72 hours.
Let's go over it so you have an understanding of what they perhaps framed out over in Cairo, Egypt. War will end immediately. So the fighting that's still continuing, we saw smoke coming out of Gaza, will cease. I don't think that'll be much of a problem. All hostages alive and deceased to be returned within 72 hours. We don't know when the clock actually starts ticking, but let's say Monday, at which time you'll have 20 plus alive and over 50 bodies collected. Right now, that's taking place, we understand, between all the different factions. There are groups that are holding hostages that are not members of Hamas but have the same militant mindset. Israel released 250 people with life sentences. That means more than likely they have killed before. Think about how difficult that is. 1,700 Gazans. Some people have been captured during this fighting. Keep in mind, Yahya Sinwar was one of the people that was exchanged for one hostage last time. He ends up being the architect of the October 7th attack. Thankfully, him and his brother are dead. Hamas members could be given amnesty if they decommission their weapons and agree to give up their rockets. That was the sticking point yesterday. We believe somehow they overcame it. Hamas will not have any role in the governance of Gaza, we should hope. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. That's not going to be an issue. The issue was really more the West Bank area where the Palestinian Authority mostly has the authority, but I don't think they're looking to take any Gaza. And I don't think that was much of something to be hurdled. Gaza will be governed by a temporary transition government. This is going to be key, and that government's going to be chaired by a peace council by President Trump. And then there's going to be people like Tony Blair, who's given basically his post-prime minister career to trying to find some way forward on a two-state solution or whatever's possible in the area. The question is, if you see Westerners in that region, we know they were targets when the Iraqi transition was taking place, will they be targets again? And the possible path to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. It's all going to be performance-based. How are they acting?
And Trump has said he will head there, too. I think he's leaving Saturday night, he said, and he may even go to Gaza, he said.
That's wild, isn't it? Him being in there. That would be a very interesting moment in history, I think. I would go back to that video, though. I must say, the one with Howard Lutnick and the people congratulating, I don't know who they are. I assume that they're family members of the hostages congratulating Trump. That is just so weird on so many levels, isn't it? I mean, he's the president of the United States being congratulated by Israelis for helping Israelis be freed in a war with another set of foreigners. It's kind of like, if you ever found yourself wondering, like, is it when people say that there's an American empire, is that real? Just watch that video.
Yeah,
that's an emperor.
Where were they?
That's an emperor on the phone.
Where were they? They were in the White House.
Yeah, in the imperial capital.
In Rome. They were in Rome.
In the imperial palace. Yeah, they're in Rome. Like America, yeah. You know, I don't need to go on about that, but it's quite important for us to bear that in mind when we think about, as we've talked about, the idea that Anita Anand is a sort of counterpart and an equal of somebody like Marco Rubio. Come on, get real. Watch a video like this. But the other thing I thought was interesting is he quoted the Beatitudes, the words of Jesus Christ. Not something that you hear in the lips of Israelis very often. I just thought that was something to remark upon. Very interesting that that language was used to express gratitude. That blessed be the peacemakers.
We got some more reaction here, and this is from the left-leaning media, and you know, it's tough to make any. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Donald Trump played a huge role in this. And let's listen in on Morning Joe here. It's the wrong link. Well, there you go. They said they did say President Trump found the way of being tough with both sides, and he deserves to take a victory lap. It's well deserved, and you can expect more of that. And then do we have this one from ABC News here? Sorry about the other link.
Trump for getting this deal over the finish line. What are you hearing from your sources with regard to President Trump's role in getting both parties to sign off on at least the first phase of this peace plan?
Well, certainly this is an enormous moment for the world, but also for this administration, a big win for the president, who has been very personally involved in this, Lindsay.
Number of people.
There you go. And then we do have some reaction from Mark Carney as well. To be fair, let's play some reaction from Mark Carney. Oh, is that the Morning Joe one? Let's play the Morning Joe one first then. Let's go. Let's play that one there. Because that one's important.
So we have a national shipbuilding strategy that has created...
Nope. Up higher there. Underneath the other one right here. Well, just having some, we've got a good show though, so stick around because there is some really good stuff today. Just going to get better and better.
Morning Joe, what a treat. Joe Scarborough.
Have we got it or not? He says it doesn't.
The deal that President Trump is announcing played a key part in negotiating. It is a significant change. This war was blocked for 2 years. President Biden, who preceded him, was unable to find a way to stop it. President Trump found that way by being tough on both sides.
What happened? What?
Next few days, but it's deserved. There's no way that I can see that this would have been done without Trump's pressure.
Okay, we're not going to keep playing with that, but that slide there shouldn't be up there. But we got to go back a clip there. So that's Mika. Did you watch Mika's face? She definitely suffers from TDS really badly. That's Joe's wife there, Mika, and she's you can see her face, just like, how do I stomach this? But Mark Carney's got some reaction as well. Can we play that one?
It is a day for optimism. I want to salute, of course, President Trump, whose decisive leadership has made this possible, Mr. Kushner, Mr. Witkoff, the Qataris, the Egyptians, Turkey, who've been essential to getting to this moment. The next 48 hours are crucial. We urge the parties, particularly Hamas, to follow through, release all the hostages, and including the deceased hostages. The President and I discussed in the White House how Canada can support this process. We are supporting with humanitarian aid. There's other mechanisms that we can do to support it. And I urge, as I say, I urge all parties. We're encouraged. We're encouraged, but it's the first phase, and there's more to come. For optimism.
Yeah, we got a clip later on here where Marco Rubio. I just wanted to put this in the front because this is so important for the world, and so that's why I put it up front. But there is some more coming after. Marco Rubio, you could tell when he walked into that room with Trump when he was in that Antifa roundtable that there was a spring in Rubio's step that you knew he had something good. And we'll play that clip. It's worth watching, and we'll get you that clip here as we go through some of the rest of the stuff. But let's move back to some of the Canadian news here. Mélanie Joly says Canada could become an economic superpower. And I'm sure everybody that when you listen to Mélanie Joly, you get a lot of confidence. But let's roll it here with Mélanie.
So we have a national shipbuilding strategy that has created hundreds of jobs across the country. So we did it 15 years ago. We can continue to do it. And also, so buy, build, and partner.
Ferry says the Chinese bid was $1.2 billion.
So we have a national...
Except I don't know what happened to our national strategy when we sent our ferries off to China to be built. Confusing.
I don't know what happened to our national industry about, maybe not 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. I think Jolie might be able to explain that. But sorry, I just have to go back quickly to Mark Carney. I don't know if you caught it. It was just one word. But did you hear how he referred to Turkey? How he pronounced that?
Yeah.
Turkey, which is how they say it in Turkish. And then the Turkish, led by a crazed nationalist Islamist, Erdogan, they've gone around and tried to insist that people pronounce it and spell it also in a way that they prefer, which is like that, like Turkey with an E at the end and a little umlaut. And I just find this absolutely extraordinary that Mark Carney is just like, yes, master, you can control how I say a word that's been in the English language for how long? 1,000 years or something like that. It's absolutely crackers. Every country obviously has their own name for their country. Like Zhongguo, that's what the Chinese called China. Not many people know that who speak English because it's irrelevant to us. We call it China. Russia, they have their own. Germany. When was the last time you heard somebody say, like, I'm going to go to Deutschland next week on a holiday? It's servile behavior, and he's going to get away with it because nobody cares or nobody knows about that. But it's worth highlighting. Just because somebody tries to force you to spell a word a certain way or pronounce it a certain way, it doesn't mean you have to do it. You don't have to change your own language to appease other people. But Mark Carney has done that.
Well, the big news though from their trip there, and Lutnick lays it out there. They're not going back to the former free trade system, and like the auto thing. I don't think they're going to get a lot of room on that. And he says the era of free trade in North America has ended. Lutnick says that prompting Ford to threaten energy boycott. Ford making a lot of noise, right? But the U.S. will no longer buy Canadian-made cars, and that decade-old system of free trade in North America is now at an end. And that's from Secretary Howard Lutnick, the close ally of Trump's, told the BMO or Eurasia U.S.-Canada Summit in Toronto that U.S. is putting itself first in all things, and Canada can be granted the privilege of being second if it wants and accrue all the benefits that entails. In his own address to the same conference, Carney said the progressive integration of North American economies is over and nostalgia isn't a strategy. And there you go. Ford said he'd cut off energies and mineral sales to the U.S. in retaliation. I don't think it's going to work, Doug, but hey.
Well, for all the same reasons that the hardcore elbows up crew, their exact argument was you can't break off this relationship with Canada because we're too important to you. It'll hurt you too much. That logic also applies to Doug Ford's plan, doesn't it? Because if Doug Ford does that, we're so Ontario is so strongly linked to the US that it's going to hurt Ontario.
Yeah, the one thing that we should recognize, if a corporation, you got to think of these countries as corporations too. It's about competition. We've made it very uncompetitive here in Canada. A lot of the capital has fled the United States. So instead of thinking we're owed something, why don't we make Canada competitive? Why don't we deregulate? Why don't we lower taxation? Why don't we provide incentives for companies to do things? Instead, we're going to piss and moan about how the Americans are treating us unfairly. Corporations don't do that if they lose a contract. Say TELUS had a contract with, I don't know, Rogers, and then all of a sudden Bell came in there and took it. They don't get to whine and say, well, look what they did. They offered them a better deal, and now what do we do? It's just the nature of business, right? So be competitive. We have lots of stuff we can compete on. We have so much to compete on, but what do? We suppress the stuff we can compete on. That's the thing. We have obvious strengths that are being blocked and suppressed.
But that is, it's a very interesting perspective, because I think that is how Donald Trump and probably also Howard Lutnick perceive international relations. I would argue, and lots of other people would argue, maybe it would be futile to do so, but that the relationship is transcends that kind of thing. It's not just transactional in a commercial sense, that it's much deeper and more complex than that. But that's certainly how Trump perceives it, isn't it? And it's crucial, I think, to bear that in mind. But also, you're talking about us suppressing our
strengths,
natural strengths and industries. We know why that's happening. We're going to talk about it later, I assume, when we talk about EB. EB spelled it out in an interview with Fassi Capellas yesterday, where he basically said, in so many words, you could translate it as saying, the First Nations decide what happens to the economy of Canada, and I'm not going to challenge that. He even said, the courts have decided. I'm not going to challenge that. Therefore, I'm opposing Danielle Smith's pipeline through BC, because then the First Nations will say that they don't want my project. That is a weakness. And I haven't even got started on Quebec and other and other sort of special interest groups. That's a weakness at the absolute center of Canada. And the Americans obviously know that. They'll have people in the State Department who do nothing else but read about this and think about this and research this and see the Achilles heel that Canada has. And it's obvious. So when we talk about things like, oh, just build things, build your industry, that's when you start getting the questions like we've been asking recently. Is Canada even a country? Can it even do things like that? If one special interest group says no, we're going to find out anyway, aren't we? That's kind of what the next few years are going to be.
We have to also recognize when we talk about the auto sector, we can't just pick up a moment in time and say that's the piece we're going to look at. Detroit used to be the biggest power center in the United States of America. General Motors used to be the biggest corporation in the world. And I remember reading that book in 1980, On a Clear Day You Can See GM. They were the most powerful corporation in the world. Detroit was like the hub of commerce. And it's gutted. Like, I mean, there's places in Detroit that you can buy houses for $3,000. You just don't want to go there. And Detroit has been gutted, and the automakers.
It was also the richest place in richest city in the world. Like the citizens were wealthy.
And then you can go to.
It wasn't just that they built cars; they're all rich.
They were gutted. The auto manufacturers went to Mexico for cheap labor, and they went to Canada for cheap labor, and a dollar that was artificially suppressed by our own government. We pushed our dollar down so we could compete and we could bring on the automakers up here because they could come up here, get cheaper labor, especially through the dollar, right? They could do things cheaper and then export it back into the United States. And it was great for the automakers that were making nothing but money off of it, right? So they got cheaper labor, they exploited that, and then Trump is just saying like that's what you've done to Detroit is gutted it, and the steel industry, because remember the steel industry, like places like I think it's Cincinnati and all those big steel industry towns have been gutted as well. And those are the things that he said he was going to do. It was obvious what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it. And we should figure out what our strengths are and play to those strengths. That's what we should do. Instead of cutting off power, just charge them more for power. You need our power, pay more, right? Here it is. It's just going to cost you more, and then we can make up for it that way. But here's Anita Anand here that, I don't know, I guess we were going to do Anita Anand. All of a sudden somebody left the room, so we're kind of curious. But we're going to play that Anita Anand clip here. Maybe. Oh, maybe. Anyway,
I just can't wait. I can't wait any longer for my Anita.
I think his mouse died or whatever, so we had to get a new battery there. So now we're going to play it here.
Mr. Speaker, one thing that Canadians know, from Ingersoll to Windsor to Oakville to Oshawa, is that on this side of the House, we will not let Canadians down. We have the strategic fund putting billions of dollars to support auto workers and the auto sector. We are supporting the agri-food business, and we will always be there for Canadian workers as well, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're about diversifying supply chains and supporting Canadians while we get the best deal possible for this.
At the same time, they basically helped kill the auto sector with this EV mandate. We're going to talk about that later, too. They put one foot on the throat. The 6 CEOs from the automakers here in Canada have warned them time and time again, drop the EV mandate. You're killing the industry here. And they didn't want to listen to that either. But here we got a talking head on CBC, again, feeling entitled. And she's got a solution, though. Listen to her solution.
You're right. At the same time, what happened today isn't new information. Going back to Lisa's comment about Donald Trump wanting to destroy the Canadian auto sector, this is something that's been very clear for months now in several of his speeches. And the fact that we in Canada have so many jobs relying on the auto sector while not having a Canadian, there's not Canadian cars out there. We're not owning those companies. It was always a weakness, and now we're being exposed to that. But if somebody wants to launch a car business in Canada, now would be the time. Otherwise, it's going to be an issue, I think, for several years to come, as long as that is the vision in the United States. And so, what I saw today was Mark Carney trying to essentially save the furniture on steel and aluminum and the other things that can still be worked on. And I want to just say this. There is perhaps some advantages to the CUSMA deadline still being on the horizon and us trying to only negotiate some tariffs and taking some more time to negotiate a broader agreement. And that might be that between now and the next couple of months and year, we're going to be witnessing several issues in terms of democracy in the United States itself, freedom of expression, and even the state of the freedom of election for the midterm, as the president is now sending the army and some large American.
Okay. 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 See, this is what I mean. It's absolutely lunacy. But I don't think she understands how hard it is to create an auto company.
I don't think many people do, really, do they? I don't think they've thought about it. But
there's only, actually, even including China, there's only one successful automaker in the past 50 years. Only one that is profitable. One. And that is Tesla. That's the only one. Even the Chinese ones are not profitable. They're all losing money. They're just propped up by the Chinese government. So just think Canada, who you chased all the investment away. Why would anybody invest in an auto company? A guy did try it back in the day, Bricklin. And I think he made about 1,200 cars or 1,500 cars. But like, there is no support for an auto industry in Canada. And then to go on and say that there's a threat to democracy, again, the people that say this threat to democracy, these are the same people, the CBC, that have stifled the media here in Canada with Bill C-18, crushed local independent media while they stick their face in the trough and then tell you there's a threat to democracy. How many people are allowed in to do press conferences with Mark Carney? Why don't you talk about that? Like, these people are ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. I can just shake my head on this. Her thinking that Canada now needs an auto. Why doesn't the CBC invest in an auto sector?
$1.5 billion a year. That's pretty decent seed money, isn't it? Why don't we do that?
They might be better at doing that than what they're doing now. They want the auto sector here in Canada. Then just sell cars to Canada or sell them somewhere. Be competitive at it. Be competitive at it. You don't have a right to build cars here with an American company and then say the Americans have to buy them. Like, I mean, that's what capitalism is. Make it competitive. Find something. And that EV mandate, you need to scrap it. I drive an EV, love it. And but you can't force EVs on people. You did it yourself. Absolutely self-harm. Another example of self-harm.
I would say, though, in her defense, you said Tesla's the only company that's succeeded recently. I did see a Rivian on the road. They're not profitable.
They're not profitable. They are far from profitable.
It's the first time I've ever seen one. That's why I thought.
But I'm just
but
saying.
Rivian is often put forward, isn't it? It's like, oh, we also have Rivian, but it's like.
But they're not profitable.
Not so much.
They cost twice as much to build one as they sell it for. They're not profitable. They're selling about 40,000 units a year. Tesla's doing about 2 million units a year. Rivian is far from profitable. Got a nice truck for sure. Cool. There's twice the price of a Tesla as well. I mean, they're out of reach for most people. And also, you know, there's Lucid. There's a few other ones, but they're not profitable. They're losing money hand over fist. Fisker. There's a graveyard.
Which proves the point.
There's a graveyard of these things out there. Like absolute Canoe, another one in the graveyard. And how many in Canada? What's a Bright Volt or Bright something? Bright Drop or something like that. The one they just closed here in Ontario. Anyway, here's Francois Philippe Champagne, another guy to strike. Line, yeah. Another one to strike confidence in your... Here you go. Let's listen to Francois here.
Mr. Lutnick's comments, is the auto sector able to survive without free trade with the U.S.?
Listen, what I can say is that we've been fighting, as you know, for the auto sector, for the workers. It's a great industry in our nation. I see ourselves, when I say that, Canada and the U.S. more as complementary than in real competition, because the fact that we have integrated supply chain, and I would say that goes back for decades, is what really makes our products more innovative, more competitive. And I think that's something which is positive on both sides of the border.
But he's saying the U.S. first now, Canada second. That's Mr. Lutnick's position.
Listen, I heard this comment, but I can say from a Canadian perspective, and I've been spending quite some time with the auto sector, is really when you look at the integrated nature of our production, when you look at the auto parts, when you're looking at aluminum, when you look at the essential things that you need to build the cars of the 21st century. Think about the battery ecosystem, for example. Everything you need to make the cars of today and tomorrow is the fact that we're integrated, and I think this is what makes North America very competitive. This is the economic bloc where we have brought innovation, competitiveness, and I think by that kind of approach that we have had for decades is what has made the cars that we make here in North America.
Is Ian gone or? Ian, are you there? Or? Somehow we lost Ian there, but somebody put in the comments there, Edison Motors trying to make a hybrid logging truck. Yeah, they've been trying for a while. I have interviewed Chris Barber in the past. And it was a good interview. He's not getting any help here from, the NDP complains about it all the time, about, looks like Ian's back. There you go. We're having all kinds of fun today. But, the reality of the situation is, he's talking about battery plants, Francois Philippe-Champagne. I mean, the biggest battery maker is in China, the CATL. And then there's Panasonic, and then there's, Tesla making batteries and stuff like that. And, for us to kind of bang around the edge, we've already seen a couple of battery companies fail here in Canada. It's just, it's absolutely ludicrous. Why don't we figure out what a strength is and what the industry needs instead of us, just virtue signaling all the time. And then we need to get scrapped EV mandates because you know what? GM and Ford and all these auto manufacturers need a certainty. If you're going to tell them they can't build gas cars here, which is what they're doing, like Ford and GM and Toyota and Honda, they're just not in the EV realm. They're just not making really competitive vehicles at this point. And anyway,
not fully EV anyway. They're certainly making extremely competitive hybrids.
Yeah, hybrids and gas cars. That's where they're spending their energy. But here it is. Cabinet is far short of its target to build electric auto charging stations despite more than $1 billion in subsidies. There you go. The report even warned if it's successful, there was no evidence that financing a national network at taxpayers' expense would lower emissions. Again, here's the simple thing. It's really easy. Tesla will do their own. Just talk nice to them. Just be nice to Tesla. They have the best supercharger network in the world. That is common knowledge. All the auto manufacturers are going to the NACS standard. Because why? Because the Tesla supercharger stations work way better than these ones that you're seeing here. They're way cheaper, they're way more reliable, and they have an amazing network. That's one of the strengths of Tesla, is they built out the supercharger network first, right? And then every Ford, I think Ford was the first to jump in, GM, and then all the auto manufacturers have jumped into it. Instead of us spending $1 billion to subsidize this thing, it's just, again, just tell Tesla, go ahead and do it. And treat them, stop calling Elon Musk a Nazi. And start the program pays subsidies up to $10 million to install charging stations. Wow, somebody's making money. The department set an initial target of 33,500 stations, but by 2026, only 12,000 were operational. And I can bet you only half of them that are operational work. Because I hear horror stories from so many people when they go there. It's a nightmare to get these things to work. Cabinet since 2019 has budgeted $630 million in subsidies. That's all this government knows how to do: subsidize, subsidize, subsidize. Weaken the industry, put its foot on its throat, and then ask them to come and beg for subsidies. Federal subsidies are in addition to the $500 million in financing for vehicle charges by the Canada Infrastructure Bank. The loans were to cover partial costs of installing 5,000 stations. Tesla will pay for their own.
But what I find crazy is you're talking about the subsidies and how that seems to be the kind of instinctive reaction of this government, except when it comes to oil and pipelines, because we keep hearing, don't we, like it must be a private proponent. We can't have a similar situation to what we had with TMX, no more public funds. But for some reason, that principle doesn't apply here. And it's even more daft, to use David Eby's favorite term, when you think that there is a private company that would probably do it. But I mean, I must admit, I don't know what the lay of the land is with Tesla on that right now, but they certainly are doing it in the US, aren't they?
Listen to this corporate grift. What we're doing at the Canada Infrastructure Bank is we're saying to private developers, I will make you a loan not to go to 1 charger and 5 chargers and 10 a year, but to do like 1,000 next year. You don't have to start paying back until the utilization of the charger is high enough that you start making money. Who wouldn't want that loan? Where do we line up? Where do we sign up for this loan? Here, you can start a business, and you don't have to start paying us back till you make money. Where's the average Canadian getting that access to that loan? You tell me.
And they give you very nice interest rates as well, don't they? You don't get the normal interest rate. You'll get a much lower one if the BC Ferries thing is anything to go by.
This is like,
and also this incentivizes whoever takes them up on this offer. Incentivizes them to charge higher prices for the to get your electricity, to get your charge, because they need to get the money back, and it's kind of.
Lots of times I've heard from people that it's 50% to 100% higher than a Tesla supercharging station. And it doesn't work half the time. You got to use a credit card, you got to do all these things. Like with the Tesla one, you pull up to it and you take it out of the rack, you stick it in the car, and that's it. Done. It just seems so. It's because they've blocked themselves from like being all reason, right? Elon Musk bad, so therefore we're going to create, or maybe it's all about corporate grift. I don't know.
Yeah, ask who benefits. That's often a good indication, isn't it?
And I can tell you when I go around too, you see these, because lots of times there's a Tesla supercharging station right there. Next to it is these, like whatever I won't even say the names, is these other types of chargers, and those are empty. The people driving the Fords and the other the Chevy Bolts and all that, you know where they're charging? In the Tesla one, right? And you know what? And the only vehicle that you hate there when it's charging is that stupid F-150 Lightning, because it takes 2 stalls because they put the stupid plug thing in the wrong place, so it has to actually take 2 stalls up. So the Tesla people are just like, really? Think you got to be a pig about it? Anyway. You like this guy, Dominic LeBlanc, and I think he's probably one of the serious guys as well. And he has this to say when asked about the Golden Dome.
Have we joined the Golden Dome? And the reason I ask is the president today said one thing where we are working very closely is the Golden Dome, and we'll be working together on the Golden Dome for the 2 countries. So can you clarify, have we made a decision to join the Golden Dome anti-missile system?
So the president, you're right, Steve, said that in the Oval Office, and the discussion that followed was around enhancing and strengthening our defense and security relationship in a whole series of areas. The Golden Dome was one that the president raised. We have indicated that we wanted to be a constructive partner as the Americans elaborate the details of a Golden Dome. Those conversations are ongoing. But the discussion around strengthening and deepening the security arrangement was much broader than one specific project. We talked about different global threats that would affect the security of Canada and the United States. And the Prime Minister spoke to President Trump about the significant increase in defense spending that we've committed to as a Canadian government. And again, there are obviously, the priority for us is industrial benefits for Canadians, but organically and over time, that strengthens the economic and defense partnership with the United States.
But have we signed on to the Golden Dome? I don't have an answer to that question.
The president said that we are discussing with the Americans how to participate in that idea. The Prime Minister has said that he was absolutely open to understanding the details and that they should see Canada as a constructive partner. But signing on, Steve, again, you're using a technical term of contract law. Nobody put the contract in front of us and signing with a witness. We told the Americans we want to be a security and defense partner, and the Golden Dome is absolutely part of that conversation. And the 2 leaders spoke positively about that in the private conversation, and the president did in the Oval Office.
Yeah, we were going to show their logo out there, but yeah, the short answer is yes. But I mean, I can't see how they can't in myself. And but hey,
I mean, he's backed into a corner there, wasn't he, old Dom? Very,
yeah.
very hard position to be in, trying to kind of talk about things that are other men's decisions. You know, it is quite awkward.
Yeah, NDP leader had that meeting with Mark Carney about the budget, and this thing is really getting pushed down. This is one of the most important things going on. But he had that meeting, and he said he'll support the budget if it continues to invest, increase spending, adds to social housing, improves healthcare. Like, there's no money left, but I'm sure he'll he'll get something out of it. But
have you considered, Jim, that you just need to tax the billionaires harder?
That'll convince
them to come
here. And that'll convince them to come here and invest in Canada. That's well, you know what? We do have the CBC now launching its own auto company, so we have that. Imagine what the CBC's car would look like.
It would be a pretty great car. It would only come in one color though, which would be rainbow. That would be it. And
Rosemary Barton would be doing all the marketing for it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it would have to be. No, I'm not. I'm stepping back from that, Rosemary. I'm stepping back.
Anyway, the food professor here put something out as well. What I learned from Carney's second meeting with Trump, first is dairy is clearly the main target, and we picked up on that too in those conversations, right? Is with supply management, chicken and eggs less so. Second, it was abundantly clear that Trump wanted Carney to win the election to secure the best possible deal. And that, some people are saying that now that they, and I think I've said that too, that they wanted Carney to win because this suppression of energy is Canada's strength, and that makes Canada weaker. If we suppress our strength, that makes us weaker. Makes sense, doesn't it? If we suppress our own strengths, makes us weaker.
The Liberals also kind of endorsed the constitutional status quo, and the constitutional status quo is a logjam. You know, a complete inability to do anything, as we've seen. And the Liberal Party endorses that, and Carney did as well, where he said, if any of the premiers object, if any of the First Nations object, we're not going to do anything. Well, that's the predicament Canada finds itself in now, and that is the cause of so many of Canada's problems. I mean, including GDP per capita, productivity, all the rest of it, investment. And the Liberals endorse that status quo because they can work around it and stay in power. Like they can use that to stay in power. Whereas the Conservatives, at least under Poilievre, just wanted to take a sledgehammer to that. God knows if it would have worked. I mean, it might have turned out even worse. But it was a bit of a risk from the American perspective, if you look at it that way.
How many reporters have asked this question? Because we don't get to be in the room with Carney. How many reporters have asked this question? Mr. Carney, you sat there and listened to Donald Trump poke a hole in everything that you're doing. He said America was down that same path. It was down this woke culture, windmills, and all these things. It outlined that suppression of energy and all these things. And the United States has done an about-face on all those things. And you can tell that things are changing in the United States. Like, there's a lot of investment coming in. None of that has changed in Canada. Why hasn't it changed? Like, you know, David Eby and Wab Canoe were just talking about they're going to build these massive wind farms while we're sitting on $9 trillion worth of oil in Alberta. $9 trillion sits in the ground, literally sits in the ground, and we're going to build windmills instead. Is that the billions of dollars of projects that David Eby has ready, shovel ready? That's the ridiculousness of the moment, right? Which reporter asked that question and said that he outlined everything that changed America's fate and its path? We're still down that same path. Why?
Well, I would return to what I just said. It makes it possible for the Liberal Party to rule. And that is often all you don't have to look any further. Their constituency, their coalition wants that, and it enables the Liberal Party to rule.
You have to be I just want to make sure this is abundantly clear for people that might lose their minds. There's $9 trillion worth of wealth that everybody in the world wants. The Germans begged for it, the Japanese begged for it, Europe's begging for it, the Americans want it. David Eby doesn't want it to happen, but he's doing a deal with Wab Canoe on windmills.
I would say it's not necessarily the case that David Eby doesn't want it to happen, the First Nations, who have very kindly given him permission to build LNG facilities and other projects, they don't want it. That's the key. And he doesn't want to fight with them because that would lead to him losing power. So it's not so much about what David Eby wants. Or maybe it is. David Eby wants to be in power. That's the way to be in power. So, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily about what he wants or doesn't want, really. David Eby he's quite flexible, isn't he? Changes his mind when it becomes politically necessary for his own survival. He changes his mind. It doesn't strike me as somebody who's going to fight to the death for his principles. So I would say if it was possible for him to remain in power and not upset his coalition and also have this oil pipeline, he would do it.
Yeah. And this is what Mélanie Joly is really good at. Let's listen in on what Mélanie has to say here. This is one of her strengths.
I'm wondering, Minister, if you could comment on your unique working relationship with Senator Graham from South Carolina.
Greg, did Lindsay call you? It's funny in life. There are people that, you must have that in your families or, in your group of friends, people that really don't think like you, that don't see the world the same way, but that when you see, it just connects. That's my friendship with Lindsey Graham. I'm completely different. I have a francophone accent. I, come from Canada. I'm a progressive. I wear white suits. I'm a woman. But I love Lindsay. So we go for drinks. He's always also, what I like about his point of view, he's a very astute politician.
That's good enough. She had me and we go for drinks.
It's quite funny. Also, the idea that, Lindsey Graham, it would be more interesting if it was Matt Gaetz or something, or some like hardcore Trumpy man. Yeah. Lindsey Graham is not who she's trying to present him as being. He's not quite that diametrically opposite to her.
But this is how we're negotiating with the Americans. We go for drinks. Awesome. I can see Rubio just we're going to do this, but let's do that, right?
I would say it's good still. This is the basis of diplomacy, isn't it? So I can't pretend that it's not generally a good thing. But you do also need, what people are complaining about here is there's been plenty of this kind of chumminess, hasn't there, and face-to-face chats, but there hasn't been any concrete results.
Remember, Mélanie Joly did say that people are coming to her because she knows how to deal with the Americans. And at the same time, I can't remember the number. Was it $500,000 that they doled out to a Democrat to figure out how to speak Republican?
How to understand MAGA, yeah. It's pitiful, isn't it?
Doug Ford.
Absolutely pitiful.
People call Pierre Poilievre the pit bull, but Doug Ford might be taking this on here. Let's listen in on Doug here.
We have to make sure we leverage our strengths. But we can't sit back and let President Trump continuously increase tariffs and the Prime Minister's decreasing tariffs. That doesn't cut it. So we have to be prepared, and the auto sector needs to be prepared. Not only our good uniform members, but also the Prime Minister. My first question, what are you going to do to protect the auto sector here in Ontario? It's absolutely critical. Because with every auto sector falls the part manufacturers and the steel and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's enough on the auto stuff anyway, but we did have this other thing from Lutnick says they did dismiss, but we already covered that. But we're going to go to this one thing, and this one's really telling. It's the one with Mark Carney here, and it just shows you what Carney says about, everybody that suffers from TDS, but when they get there, and we've seen this over and over again, when they end up in the room with Donald Trump, it's kind of like a different thing. But this is weird. I'd like to hear your reaction to this clip here from Mark Carney when he comes out into the area where the reporters are waiting. This one? Down here? Try that link. It might be the right one. It's the right one. You can play that one, right?
Make sure.
It's this one down here, though. Yeah, that one.
How was the meeting, sir? Oh, you guys were so excited there. I've never seen a group of Canadian journalists' faces light up. You're in the Oval Office. You're going to ask the president
We're
a big
not like
question.
that when we see you.
You're just like you were not. You're never. You look when you look at me. You're just. The president's there. It's all great.
What about the pipeline?
Good discussion.
You're gonna restart the pipeline?
No, it was there's people in the YouTube chat talking about how cringe Mélanie Joly was. What's that then? If Mélanie Joly was cringe, how do you describe that? It's just like, as usual with Canada's rulers, Canada's lords and nobles. It's just a never-ending parade of cringe, isn't it?
Was he talking about himself though, or was he talking about the reporters, or were they all just that enamored? Because who was he talking?
It sounded like he was talking about his, someone's new dress or something. So it sounds like he sounded like a Vogue columnist, didn't he? He's like, and everybody was just like, it was so great. I mean, it's exceedingly cringy, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it seemed like a couple of things. Remember they bring on the experts to talk about Mark Carney's body language. Let's bring the expert in for this body language. Because it's either jealousy, or it's either like he's talking about himself and trying to mirror that. Because the Daily Mail took a shot at him for being Taylor Swift groupie, and now he's trying to pin it onto the reporters. But all of these, when they're not around Trump, they seem to have severe TDS. But when they're in the room there, it seems to change.
But I would say, in my own expert opinion, as an expert assessor of body language with decades of experience, I would say what he was doing there was he was basically trying to be chummy with the press, wasn't he? He was trying to be like, I'm your friend, remember? Like, we're good friends. Give me positive coverage. See you later. That's kind of what that was. It was an attempt to have this kind of bond, wasn't it?
And here's the other key point. If that had been Donald Trump, he would have taken several questions. He took zero. He said his point and walked off because they asked, "What about the pipeline?"
As he
what
does
about the pipeline?
all the time.
Right. Trump would have stood there for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and answered questions. There's a difference in transparency. That CBC reporter was telling you how the Americans are the threat to democracy, how they're putting army into towns. I mean, it's absolutely conflating things. And then the real threat to democracy is people that won't answer questions. Stop gaslighting. We don't have a slide for this.
We should say Justin Trudeau also used to take questions in that exact context when he was in the House of Commons. Yeah. His predecessor there. So it's kind of, this is something about Mark Carney in particular, I think.
Yeah. We don't have the slide for this, but we have this clip here. You wanted to play it yesterday. It's an interview with the economist here, Mark Carney, and the Economist. Let's play this clip.
Is effectively monetizing its military hegemony and its economic clout. I mean, it's essentially, and I can say this and you probably can't, but it's essentially a sort of mafioso economic policy.
Well, certainly you had me at monetizing hegemony. You lost me as you went on. I think he has a view. He's not alone in his view. I don't share the view, but he has a view that you measure economic success in trade, just like you measure success in business of whether or not you have positive cash flow. And so for him, running a trade surplus is a sign of success. And if you're running a deficit, you by definition are either being ripped off or you're not as successful as you need to be. We take a different view, comparative advantage. We don't have time, but since this is The Economist, I can say comparative advantage. I can also say, and this is higher level explainer at the back, if you have the reserve currency, the quid pro quo of having the reserve currency is you run a current account deficit because you got to supply.
Have you tried that logic on the president?
I have not. There's not enough hours in the day to go there.
To use President Trump's favorite analogy, they have the cards, right? I mean, they have not only do they have the economy, they also have the security side. I mean, you can't even defend the Arctic, right, by yourself.
Well, we can defend more of we're defending more of the Arctic now.
Did you want that to cut there? Is that what you're saying, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, he goes on to try and pretend that Canada is capable of defending the Arctic, which is it's a different subject, equally hilarious. But I I can't get enough of that. That's like the third or fourth time I've seen that now. I can't get enough of that. Where did you hear what he said at the end? It's like, I haven't got enough hours in the day to explain to the big fathead Donald Trump what it means to have the reserve currency, what it means, what comparative advantage means, which is literally the thing you're taught in like high school about economics, like the most basic principle of economics. But he's too stupid to understand that. And he's so dumb and stupid that he thinks a trade deficit is like having negative cash flow. I mean, it's just remarkable. I like I say, I cannot get enough of that little clip, because that is Mark Carney saying, and again, this is his big problem. He seems to think that he's so much smarter than everybody else that nobody can understand what he's saying. It's like he thinks that he's speaking in like Sanskrit or something, and nobody knows what it is. We all know what you're saying, Mark. It's not that complex. And another person that knows what you're saying is Donald Trump. And if Trump is ever shown this video, you'd have to assume that he'd be upset about it, because this is Mark Carney basically saying Donald Trump is a moron that doesn't understand economics. And isn't that funny, you at The Economist magazine?
I got a basic question for Mark Carney and The Economist, if we could get to ask the question. The question I would ask if I was got to sit there, what does it take to convince to convince people with money to invest in Canada? And then he's going to give some type of answer. And then my next question would be, why haven't you? Why is Brookfield gone? Why are all your investments in the United States? Why, if it's not good enough for you, it should be good enough for somebody else? What is the problem with Canada? It's the answers within yourself. You have the answer, Mark Carney. It's within
But I'd also
you.
say, why is it that when we get the years in which you were the governor of the Bank of England, and we put that on top of basically any economic chart related to the British economy and the British people, why is it that basically nothing got better for the British people? If you are such an economic wizard, guru, on the verge of nirvana, you're the Buddha just about to explode into bliss and godliness. If that's the case, why aren't there results to show that, to back that up? Why is there no evidence to support that? But then again, they don't ask questions like that, do they? And I mean, when I say that, people like Mark Carney, it seems, don't ask questions like that of themselves. And Christine Lagarde, who we had a clip from yesterday, I think it's another example. They don't ask those questions, do they? It's not, and they never seem to. And this is part of the reason why Trump was elected twice, because there's this class of people that thinks that they know better and that they're such experts, but they don't have the results. They don't have the evidence to back up their claims.
I mean, it's such an obvious question, the one I just asked, though. Why aren't people investing in Canada? We've seen a capital outflow out of Canada, and we've seen a massive capital inflow into the United States. What are they doing to attract capital? Because it all comes down to capital. What are they doing? And including brain drain. That's capital as well, intellectual capital. It's leaving Canada. Money's leaving Canada. Intellectual capital is leaving Canada. What are they doing that we're not doing? Those are the questions that need to be answered, and those are the questions not being answered. And there is, what I do see is a lot of the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. We see a lot of these schemes and money for the few, the elitism, the Laurentian elite and that stuff, the kind of the pillaging of the taxpayer. We're going to see some of those results. We're kind of running late because of all the stuff with Gaza here, but we're going to kind of go a little faster here. Influencers, the loudest voices online in this spring's federal election. Why is that? Bill C-18 crushed news outlets. And again, the Liberals continue down this road of the Online News Act. And they know that it is hurting local independent media outlets like ours. They've taken away our audience of 200,000. Facebook could care less, and neither could the Liberals, because they're spending money hand over fist with Meta. And now they won't even disclose to us how much they're spending with us. They say they're going to give us that number in January. It's just absolutely ridiculous. The party of transparency, right? The study found that news banned Facebook as a consequence of the Online News Act. No shites, Sherlock.
I must say, I love this the news media, all the various little organizations that purport to represent journalists and news outlets in this country have come out and said, "Oh, please, my lord, my liberal lordships, would you please spend 25% of your advertising budget on us, rather than, in their words, big tech companies in California?"
Nobody wants to compete, right?
Top of the list being Facebook.
Again, here's the liberals. They've crippled media so that they're at the begging bowl of the government, and then they wonder why media is so corrupted in Canada. So they're begging for money. Media should be able to do better. We're still hanging on, even though they've basically got their foot on our throat, and media needs to get better. Take away all the funding, and then we'll get better. They'll look at the United States. Media has morphed into something else. The large outlets no longer have the big voice. Joe Rogan is huge. We need to provide value, not beg at the begging bowl. And this is, again, the major outlets with the voice are saying, oh, we just need more subsidies. Is this what we want in Canada? A democracy that is a government that controls media, and then we have media begging to stick its hand in your pockets for more cash so they can feed you more. Like that stuff that came out of CBC's mouth, did she get fact-checked on that and say, like, the Americans, the threat to democracy is ending in the United States? Like, has Donald Trump gone against any court ruling yet? Has he ignored any court ruling? No, he just appeals it, doesn't he? Has he gone against any court ruling? They say you can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not so, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of one, no.
How is Nancy Pelosi still walking around? Right? If
a cocktail of amphetamines probably is the answer to that. But I don't know. I mean, we have to highlight, don't we, that these companies that are now at the begging bowl once again. These are the same companies in many cases. Almost a perfect crossover between these companies that are asking for this and the companies that ask for the Online News Act in the first place, which is what led them to this dark pass.
It's absolutely. And then this is the real thing that I think is going to happen. And we've talked about this already. Trump, very receptive to the Keystone XL plan. Remember that when they killed it? It was Biden's first day. He had that stack of books there next to him. And he signed that. I think that's the only time he ever signed anything other than the auto pen signed everything. But he signed they celebrated that, as did Trudeau's Liberals, celebrating the killing of Keystone XL. And it sounds like, this is probably what's going to happen. They're going to revive Keystone XL. And then in Canada, they're going to revive the carbon credits, because we're going to talk about that later too. Like, carbon credits is a huge thing, and Tim Hodgson touted that company that moved from the United States to get a 75% tax credit in Canada to launch their big, colossal monstrosity that looks like a bunch of air conditioning units, and then you're going to end up giving them the ability to tax the oil field companies.
Yeah, this is shaping up now, isn't it? It's looking like Keystone for you, Danielle, and then shut your damn mouth, basically. That seems to be what's going to be offered. And she's going to say, but how stupid, like, immediately she's going to say, hold on a second. Yeah, the pathways thing, which is just like a massive tithe, isn't it? But she's just going to say, hold on a second. I thought we wanted to get our products to the rest of the world, not be strangled by one customer and
Exactly.
like completely trapped by one customer.
Exactly.
But it looks like that's what she's going to be offered now. Let's see how she reacts.
And then we're going to skip that thing for the NDP. We kind of covered it because we got to blow through a couple things. But here's a picture with J.D. Vance had Mark Carney over for dinner at the vice president's abode there, and that's J.D. Vance with Carney and Usha Vance. I remember when they tried to go after J.D. Vance and call him a white supremacist.
I think they still do, some of them. I'm fascinated by the fact that J.D. Vance's feet and shoes appear to be literally double the size of Mark Carney's. What's going on there? Has he got Sideshow Bob feet?
Jason Kenney hopes that we can get Trump into buying the Canadian. So he's pumping. Jason Kenney's lots in the news right now. He's really helping Danielle Smith sell some oil stuff. Took a couple shots at the Mud Hutter. He called David Eby a Mud Hutter, and that's kind of sticking. I see that all over the internet now. And then National Post put out a poll starting to show Tories climbing back as Carney trust erodes. I mean, even CBC is a little bit of the shine's coming off. But here's RBC that was debanking companies just a while ago that dealt in oil and gas. They didn't want to do any loans for oil and gas companies. This is what ESG did, and this is what that Net Zero Alliance did. They didn't. This is how they kept oil. They refused to finance oil projects. Now all of a sudden, here it is. RBC is promoting fossil fuels 1 week after bailing on the Net Zero Alliance. Ironic, no?
It's just the way that they just flip. It's very disorienting, isn't it? But it's also it's morally disorienting. It's kind of sickening, isn't it? To see they just hear it. They hear this thing. They want Canadian our allies want these Canadian products, and how they're less, they pollute the atmosphere less because we have higher environmental standards. People were saying that like 10 years ago, and they were laughed at, and they were told to shut up. Or it's just like it's just like that narrative change is so jarring, and I think you can understand why people are just so jaded, and they're so sick of this.
Or the truth might lie in the same thing Zuckerberg said, that we were forced to do it, and when he took the foot off our throat, then we did what we wanted to do. Anyway, I did an interview with John Carpe, and he says Canada could become a police state by Christmas. This is all these bills that are being pushed through. This seems to be the priority, not the jail.bail one. So Carpe highlighted Bill C2, C8, C9, also talked about the Online News Act. It's a good interview. Go watch it. It's got a lot of attention, getting a lot of views on it. But you go on our Now Media thread and you can watch that. And it's, again, the highlight is that in the United States, they have the First Amendment, which is basically free rights or free speech absolutism. And in Canada, what we have is the Charter of Rights, which is, when I did that interview with Lisa Bildy, she said it's kind of like, and she read the paragraph, she said it's kind of like can be interpreted different ways, and there's guardrails. And all we've seen from the Liberal government is pressure on these guardrails to condense and condense and condense. That's what Bill C2, Bill C8, Bill C9, the Online News Act, continually erode your freedom of expression, all under the guise of protecting you. Here's another story from along this line. Another story here from Holly Donald Blacklocks. This is from Sean Fraser, the Justice Minister here. He's telling you, the Attorney General, he's telling you Canadians must be very, very careful from the ruthless governments do not steal their rights. Again, is he speaking about the Liberal Party, or who's he speaking about there? Just curious. But he's saying you got to be worried about the provinces, not him, and their use of the notwithstanding clause that could spell our future downfall as a nation. I think you best find a mirror, Mr. Fraser. Hey?
It is funny, isn't it? They love this. This is Blacklock's bread and butter, isn't it? They love doing side-by-sides.
Pointing out the obvious? Pointing out the obvious? Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, he says in Canada and around the world, democracies are increasingly under strain, said Fraser. Courts' independence are being questioned. What? I think a lot of people are questioning what you and the Liberals have done to Canada. That's the question that a lot of people might have. Another one from Holly Donald Black.
It's crazy, isn't it? If we are not very careful, we're going to see bit by bit the rights that we enjoy as Canadians will come to cease to exist, and we will have no one but ourselves to blame.
Again, let's go back to what John Carpe said from the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedoms. Sean, these are the bills you're pushing through, C2, C8, C9, and C18. Again, oblivious to the truth. Foreigners' permits targeted. A cabinet yesterday introduced a bill granting itself new powers, and nothing like more powers, to suspend or cancel temporary permits for foreigners let into Canada. They don't even get rid of the ones that are supposed to leave. They don't leave. It follows figures from Immigration Minister Lena Diab's department that over 3 million foreigners are here on valid or expired permits. So this is Bill C-12, an act respecting certain measures relating to the security of Canada borders, was tabled. That to suspend all processing of foreigner study permits, work permits, tourist visas, any other documents for a period of time if it's in the public interest to do so. Again, is this just performative, right? But and then this is Michelle Garner, the MP, said that's baloney. All these statistics show we've actually increased those numbers. So is this performative, or what is the real answer here? Again, it sounds like they're just being performative.
But also, I mean, this statement from the minister, anybody whose visa expired is expected to leave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if you expect them to leave, then the onus is on them, I guess. They better leave. You better get out of there. But we're not going to try and make sure that you've left or anything. Like, you just better leave, please.
And then there's lots of talk of Chinese influence, but here's a, we're going to do this story. This is from Holly Jones, and this is Mr. Potter right here. This is, you remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life? This here is Mr. Potter. This is what he thinks
I'll be
about
watching it in a couple of months.
No, you got to go back to Wood Clear. Go back to that other slide that was up there, Wood Clear Outboarers. So Yeah, you're going to watch it happen in real life here. Then again, Tiff Macklin told Canadians a few years ago to go ahead when the Bank of Canada rate was 0.25, to go ahead and take out that mortgage. To rest assured, the banks wouldn't be raising interest rates into the foreseeable future. And then they raised them 19-fold in unprecedented fashion. Now here we go as they all start to reset here, new 5-year terms, and they're going to go like from under a point to maybe 4%. So that's huge for families. Now he says federal regulators should let the real estate market clear out people who can't afford what they bought. There you go.
Get into the
and that's from
Potter Huts.
And that's from Senator Daryl Fridlander, a corporate lawyer. I lived in Alberta in the 80s when interest rates were 17, 18, 20% and foreclosures were rampant. In fact, that was a major, major thing, and yet I look today and the market has adjusted. It's cynical, but so there's only so much government intervention.
Cyclical, he says.
Cyclical, sorry. Cynical is also a good word in there.
I was going to say, that must be in your head.
Before you allow basic economics to take their course and clear out people who can't afford what they bought. Again, Tiff Macklin, the Bank of Canada, the top finance guy in Canada, said, go ahead and take out that mortgage. Now here's this guy saying, bankrupt them. Just take it.
But he also says here, I'm apologizing for being heartless, but how much government intervention do we expect to support an artificial platform? Why is it artificial? Because of government intervention. Because your government, the Liberal Party, opened the borders to millions of people who drove up the price of housing. I mean, is it that complicated? And it is heartless, isn't it, really? I mean, it's especially heartless when it's your fault. And then you say, I mean, how much can we help? We can't intervene. We can only intervene to make it worse. We can't intervene to make it better.
Canada's Chief Bank Inspector, Superintendent of Financial Institutions, Peter Routledge, in 2020 issued a directive ordering banks to begin assessing mortgage holders at risk of default. These risks can lead to more defaults and are particularly acute for borrowers with higher risk mortgage products, such as variable rate mortgages and fixed payments. High household debt, inflation, and higher interest rates have led to real estate secured lending risks. Many borrowers are already facing higher regular mortgage payments. Others will face payment shock at renewal or sooner. But yeah, no fault of the government, right? Go ahead and take out that mortgage. No responsibility for the money printing that many people have said is caused all this.
The spending that caused the Bank of Canada to do QE. Yeah.
And the high immigration that drove up the cost of rents and housing and all that stuff. No responsibility there. So you, again, they don't care about you. They don't care. So Mr. Potter says, guess who will come in there? You know who already owns most of the housing stock in Canada and the US is Vanguard, BlackRock, Brookfield. Remember Brookfield? How many units does Brookfield own? Remember the letter from Mark Carney that said, we're in such an opportune time right now where there's not enough rentals, so we can squeeze the renter and we can even do add-ons. We can do all kinds of stuff to drive our profit margins. This is what they care. Go watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's playing out in real life. It's a Wonderful Life.
Except we don't have a Jimmy Stewart, as I said last time we discussed that analogy. Where's our Jimmy Stewart?
His name might be Donald J. Trump.
That's hard. That's a hard analogy to swallow, that one.
Anyway, take no response. Tiff Macklin is surprising he still has his job. Just absolutely incredible. Here's Tim Hodgson touting again. This is Tim Hodgson touting the Canadian dental plan. Now covers over 5 million Canadians. That includes 2 million Ontarians and on and on and on. And then if you go look underneath that, we did this story back in September 17th with Holly Dones. The overhead alone on that dental plan, $473 million. And what did the Department of Finance says in 2023? It asked the Budget Office to withhold the public release of administration costs. Why would they do that?
There's also a typo in his graphic there. 5 million Canadians.
5 million Canadians.
And this is just like, they used to say that, didn't they, in like the 19th century? That's how they used to say million, with an S on the end. But
and then there's also lots of talk in there that a lot of people, that 5 million Canadians are supposedly covered, but many don't qualify, and a lot of rejected claims. But quite the tout. Again, the benefit of the few, somebody's making good bank. That's just the administration. That's not the cost of benefits. That's the administration. That's pretty good. I'll take that over for half. And then in PEI, the last one I think we have from Holly Dones here is Wayne Easter, a retired 9-time Liberal MP, has yesterday requested a judicial inquiry into the alleged corruption in his home province of PEI. Alarmed by suspicions of dealings pointed to Chinese subterfuge. And this is all over Canada. And we had Chinese police stations in Canada. And Trudeau kind of ignored them. We had that Wuhan link there in Winnipeg. We never got that information either. They wouldn't turn over that information. You know, I see a lot of people on LinkedIn. I write a lot on LinkedIn. And a lot of people say, we need to work together. I said, well, okay, if you want to work together, then share the documents. And let's work together. Let's see it all, right? But no.
People that say that nowadays, increasingly, that is just a euphemism, meaning do what I want. Do what I want to do. Just shut up and do what I want to do. Let's work together.
You know, you have a point now. We realize you have a point, but now's not the time. Now's not the time. When is the time then? When is the time?
And that's another way of saying, oh yeah, you're morally right, but I'm in charge and that's going to stay that way. So shut up.
We're going to kind of blow past a few of these because, again, we got quite a few things left here. This is the big one, actually. And then MP Michael Cooper, we're going to go to that one. Liberals vote against my motion to force Carney to turn over all the records from his secret backroom meetings in New York and London with global investors tied to Brookfield. And so, again, this is the difference in not NDP can't be in those committees. And so that did pass. That's the Bloc and the Conservatives voted to A-OK that, right? So no NDP in the room and no Elizabeth May in the room. So they're going to apparently, I don't know how long it's going to take before the documents actually show up. And this is the National Post opinion piece. Splitting budget into operating capital only confuse the true level of debt. No shite Sherlock again, right? Like, yeah. And this from your home province, so this one is worth sharing. Look at this. This is what the mayor has time to do. This is your neighbor mayor there.
Comic relief.
Olivia Chow. Look at this. Olivia Chow. She can't even hold the bat properly. Look at this. Ready to go. Let's go, Olivia.
Hey, Toronto, we want it all.
Why'd she do that? She could have hit someone. Could have hit a pigeon.
We want it all. We want your tax dollars. We want more tax dollars.
She cracks me up, though. She's definitely funny, isn't she? Like, by accident, but she's funny.
And she's the mayor of the largest city in Canada. Which part is funny?
Yeah.
What's the funny part there?
That's when it stops being funny. Stop killing my buzz.
Let's do the BC news here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Well, if you want some buzzkill, here you go. Here's some buzzkill for you. BC News. Lawyer, I did an interview yesterday with Jeff Moyse. He's got 33 years experience in Aboriginal law, and he said that BC's Indigenous reconciliation laws are confusing, unworkable, and vague, and put British Columbia at risk in investment and all that stuff. You got to watch the interview. We had some technical difficulties with his connection, but we're going to have him back on, and he's going to talk we're going to just do a show on Haida Gwaii and what that means to British Columbians as well. But you can go watch that interview. And then I guess that we had this tweet here from Mortimer just saying how important those laws are. Well, we're going to blow past that. But look at Mayor Ken Sim setting the standard. And we're going to push this one out into Kelowna here too. Approves a 0% property tax increase for 2026 because, you know, they've been rubber stamping 3%, 4% every year, just like 3%, 4%, 3%, 4%, right? And it's like it's their but I guess he's up for election here pretty quick, as everybody, right? Like I think municipal elections come up. Is it next? Yeah, and into the new year here, the municipal election. So here he is making sure that he does it. He's done some interesting things there, actually, Ken Sim. He wants to make Vancouver the Bitcoin capital of Canada. He's probably one of the few politicians that's into Bitcoin because it ain't the Canadian government. They're not into Bitcoin. But Ken Sim, a friend of mine, Scott Deedles, I do the Bitcoin show with, actually was on stage with Ken Sim. They had a Bitcoin show down there. So Ken all in on the Bitcoin, him and Trump. Best buddies, I guess. So maybe not, but...
And what's his name? Bukele in El Salvador. He's also done that.
There you go. The Trumps. David Eby, this is odd. You know, there's a $600 fine out there, and there's Eby and Global. You know, like they got nothing else to do, but they're going after Chip Wilson, of Lululemon fame. advertising, spending all their energy. BC billionaires don't decide elections, people do. Well, you take a lot of donations from a lot of groups, Mr. Eby. And money decides.
Also, I mean, I would like not just elections. I would like to replace the word elections with economic development. And then I don't think it would be the same thing, would it? Because I don't think the people, well, you have to rejig it a little bit more than that. But I don't think the people in BC decide economic development, do they? It's special interest groups, the small, tiny minority of the population decides that. But I guess EB's fine when it's that kind of thing. Then that principle just doesn't apply any longer.
And then the left-leaning media, government-funded media, wasted no time jumping all over it as well. So there's Global BC. There's a $600 fine. They found time to just go after Chip there. But it's interesting, this next one here. Go watch the interview with David Cochrane of the government-funded CBC, like the ones that have their face in the trough. And one of the best journalists in Canada still that's in the government-funded network is Vasi Kapelis. Go watch the difference. We're not going to play them. You're going to watch the difference between how David Cochrane actually just basically, gives Eby all the time he needs to kind of just go after Daniel Smith, whereas Vasi actually calls him out.
I think here I am going to defend my beloved CBC, but I have a feeling that that's editorial policy because they often just sit there and let them speak. And I do think that maybe that is
they don't sit there for Polyev. I can play you some clips.
That's when they reveal their prejudices, obviously. It's reporters. Yeah.
I can play you that clip, that lady, the radio one there, where she just went after Polyev relentlessly. So you don't care about the planet?
Yeah. What about the pandas?
Anyway,
but no, that's true.
Let's do our international news here. We got a few things here. We covered off most.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
I mentioned that this is when Marco Rubio gave Donald Trump that note. When Marco Rubio walked in the room, I watched this whole press conference here. And this is what Ian and I do. We watch all this stuff all day long so that we can do this show. Like we endlessly watch significant events, and this was a significant event. He was at an Antifa roundtable there where you had a bunch of journalists and a bunch of independent journalists and a bunch of what you call new media, I guess, around the table. They're talking about their experiences with Antifa. But let's play this clip here when he gets the note from Marco Rubio.
Criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just given. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly. So I will take a couple of more questions.
Notice he only needs one finger to silence a room.
Yeah, it was quite funny, wasn't it? But also, did you see the photograph of the piece of paper? Because it was actually about Truth Social. Marco Rubio was saying, we need you to approve a Truth Social post to announce it, which I just find
I watched Mark
amusing.
I really like Marco Rubio. I watched him walk into the room, and he had a bounce in his step, and you knew something important was going on. Because as soon as he sat down, he started talking to Carolyn Levitt there, and he started scratching on that, feverishly started scratching on that piece of paper. And then he then went and slipped it to Trump at the first opportunity he had, and then that was the reaction from Trump there.
Reminds me, I have to bring the mood down. So it reminds me a bit of 9/11, though. That's the last time I can remember that happening.
Yeah, but the reaction was
George Bush was sat there.
Hey, the reaction was completely different. George Bush just sat there looking dumbfounded and just kept reading.
With a child's book.
And he didn't do anything. He just sat there. Trump said, I got to go, right?
Yeah, true. And he also told, this is Trump in a nutshell, isn't it? Again, for all you might despise him, many people do. And that's fair. But his immediate reaction was to tell people, to reveal the information. He didn't keep it to himself. He said, we're very close to a peace deal in the Middle East. Whereas every previous president would basically keep that to themselves, wouldn't they? That's my instinct.
And he's the threat to democracy, right? The CBC just told us that early in that segment, right? Isn't that what she said? They're going to have midterms pretty soon. It's a threat to democracy. He's sending in the army to different cities, and it's all this threat to democracy. It had nothing to do with the crime that's running rampant and the murders that are happening in those cities. And those federal agents, the National Guard is going to protect federal institutions. Only in Washington can they put them out on the streets, because Washington, D.C. is under the purview of the federal government. So in other places, the actual governors have the power to put the troops on the streets. That's why he hasn't done it. The governors have the power to put troops on the streets, but he has the power to put troops in front of federal installations like ICE facilities and stuff like that. So this is where the CBC is wrong. They say you're going to put troops. It's misleading the public. He's not doing that. The governor has to call. That's why he keeps saying, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. He's waiting for permission to do it, right? There's no way. Only in Washington. And what did the mayor do now? The mayor says, we want to keep the troops in Washington, don't they? They say, let's keep them here because the murders are way down. People are going out for dinner and all that. So it's absolute lies and gaslighting intentionally, because it's so obvious. It's absolutely obvious. Anyway, we were going to play this thing on CNN, but we already played enough of it. But this one here this is how you cure yourself of TDS. This is a reporter here, a local reporter that she shares her reaction with Donald Trump at this Antifa meeting. Let's listen in on her. The next one, not this one. Not Abby Phillips.
Thank you, sir.
Stat number 2?
I am.
All right.
No, not that one. Nope. The one before that. That one.
Mr. President, Brandy Cruz, you're going to hear us be very fired up today, and you can tell, and it's because some of us have been covering Antifa for 15 years and have never had anyone in a position of authority even acknowledge their existence. And I'll also tell you that I think that had you not done, the single most powerful thing you've done to deal with this scourge has been acknowledging that Antifa is a real thing. I genuinely believe there would be people at these tables who would be dead today and would have been killed in Portland had you not called them a terror organization and said, we're going to bring the full weight of the federal government to bear. I talked to Katie Daviscourt in Portland the other day. She'd been assaulted all summer. And she said the same thing. They didn't seem quick to violence as soon as you made that designation. So they're thinking in their heads, they're worried. There's been 24 or so arrested in Portland. They don't want to go to federal prison. There's this video of them, one of them who was in the face of an ICE agent, and then he's in custody shaking. Once you take the mask off, they're nothing.
What?
And I was told by probably a dozen people not to tell you this. I'm going to tell it to you anyway, because it's relevant to what we're talking about. I'm living proof that you can recover from TDS. I had strong Trump derangement syndrome for probably 8 years. This is one of the reasons I recovered from it. And by the way, it's much better to not have TDS. I'm happier, I'm healthier, more successful. I even think I got a little more attractive after I got rid of my Trump derangement syndrome. Yes. You know, I'm a reporter in Seattle, and frankly, I could not care any less what any of you have to say about this meeting. Could not care any less. We're not here for you. I'm not here to convince any of you that Antifa is a real thing, because if you have not come to that conclusion by now, you are never going to come to that conclusion because you don't want to see it. And you're going to go and you're going to say it's a bunch of right-wing conservative influencers who are here spinning a tale. I was one of you. I was a mainstream reporter in Seattle for 10 years. I was a TV reporter on the streets doing my job, and I was still assaulted by Antifa. So it's not about being conservative. It's about people who go there and show what they're doing. And when I saw, after all those years, that the media wouldn't be honest about what was happening, that Democratic politicians wouldn't be honest about what was happening, I thought, well, gosh, if they're not being honest about that, maybe they're not being honest about President Trump either. And it opened my mind to just looking at things for what they were. And now I find you quite funny, actually. It's like I said, I'm much happier about it. But, you know, for me, again, I could not care any less the stories that they go to print. This is what I care about. We have 3.5 years. Nothing is guaranteed, although I think if Democrats keep it up, we'll probably have Republican presidents for the next 3 decades. But nothing is guaranteed, and so what I want to see over the next 3.5 years is a full court press to dismantle Antifa once and for all in a meaningful way. I know, Andy, we talked before this about some ideas. That's really what we want to. I don't care what the media says. I don't care what Democrats say. They will never wake up to this fact. So we want the federal government to take as many of these cases as possible, look at the interstate travel between Portland and Seattle when it comes to these people who are committing violent acts, and hopefully in 3.5 years, they will be a shell of their former selves.
close to done. And it's Antifa and many others,
Yes.
unfortunately. There are many others, bad ones. Most have been named terrorists.
That's good. There you go. Did you see that one guy in the white shirt there look over and just like, when she says, I'm going to say something. It's.
I wish I could see the reaction of the journalists that she was, lecturing there.
Mm-hmm. And then just to show you the other side of it here, this is an example of what this nonsense looks like. This lady walked out of an interview. She was doing an interview, I think, with ABC, and the actual reporter, I think it was ABC, was actually asking tough questions. And she said, I'm not standing for this. I'm not sitting here and listening. So, like they're used to just being, getting their tires pumped. And the reporter was actually trying to do her job, and she walked out of the interview. But she's doing somebody turned this in. It was actually, she was doing a stream here. Listen in on this.
You ready for stat number 2?
I am.
All right. $632, which is how much you save in fuel and maintenance costs when you replace your traditional car with an EV, with an electric vehicle. So I lease a Chevy Bolt. It is the best car that I have ever owned. I just plug it into the garage, 3-hole prong plug, and I never have to go to the gas station.
That's awesome. And $632 is real money. And I know here at UCI, we have a National Fuel Center Research Center, and they're also doing work on how to make electric vehicles affordable, including for low and moderate income people, working moms, single moms like me, people who really could benefit from an extra $632 in their pocket. And it's also not just the individual savings, but it's also the total savings for our economy. So I'm on the oversight committee, you might know, and that is where we did a study recently this fall in September. And what it showed is if we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems. And the state could lose. Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't make the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with.
Okay, yeah, it's good enough. Did you notice?
I wish that was an abstraction. I wish that was just something that happened somewhere else, but I've encountered people like this in politics. Many. They are just absolutely disgusting people that predominate in that world.
Did you notice that the lady in the background that was correcting her on her information, was wearing a mask as well? In a house,
yeah.
He took it down.
I also noticed that she was a very submissive slave. And allowed herself to be spoken to like that by this disgusting goblin.
Shrieked at by this is the typical left wing, like, they call us far right. People call us far right. I say we're not far right. We're just right. And the liberals here are far from right. And you get these people here shrieking like this. And this is the same lady that walked out of an interview with a national network because the questions were too hard, and she thought that she was being unfairly questioned.
You can just take one look at her face and you can see that she looks like a very troubled individual.
And according to the CBC there just recently, Donald Trump is the threat who takes question after question after question from reporters. This lady won't answer to questions and shrieks at her underlings, because they correct her for misinformation.
Vile. Just horrible, isn't it?
And this is one of the reporters from CNBC. And he was at the World Economic Forum. I think a lot less of them will be traveling there as the world shifts away from the WEF. But listen to what he has to say, how you, the pleb, will get to travel and how the elites will get to travel. Listen to what he has to say.
There's going to be people of means who are going to travel. And then there's going to be people maybe who are lesser means who might actually be able to use an Oculus or a Magic Leap or some other kind of device to travel to the same place, but from their own couch. But in many ways,
that's enough.
It's actually going to create even more.
So there you go. So Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau can travel with the jet. But in the future, you can travel with a bag of weed and a Meta glasses.
It couldn't be any funnier, could it? They're hurtling to a
they're
Marie
sitting
Antoinette
around,
moment.
They're sitting around talking about that. This is good. This is how we save the planet from carbon emissions. The elites travel because it's important for them to travel. So get this. So if you're good with this, this is great. So the elites actually get to travel. And then you get to stay home. You can put on some goggles and you can travel as well. But you don't even have to leave. See how they put it to you? You don't even have to leave, right?
And I think he was going to go on to say, and in many cases, it'll be better anyway. I think that's what he was going to say there.
Well, yeah, it's just like, it's actually, you know, like this is why people get angry when they hear the words WEF. And remember, that company...
But this is also why people... you know, pretty serious beans, like that Turchin fella. That's why they're suggesting that we are heading towards a kind of equalization period, similar to the one that we saw in the 1780s in France that involved guillotines.
I guess your life really doesn't matter because it's elitism. And if we put the liberal mantra up that they've been following for the past 10 years, for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many, this fits right in there, right? Doesn't it? This fits right in there, for the benefit of the few, expense of the many. But they are going to give you those glasses, so you can have a look through those glasses. You can be anywhere you want, maybe a bag of weed to keep you docile. And you should be, what was the other thing they had from there? You will own nothing and be happy. well, the more weed, the more happy, I guess, right?
Some great memes came out of that, didn't they? Also, the German fella, some great memes came out of his time.
Well, he said he's infiltrated most of the cabinet of the
Liberal Party, yeah.
The Liberal Party, yeah. And then guess who's there? WEF.
Schwab.
And Tim Hodgson just touted as one of the big American wins that came to Canada is the WEF award winner. You can go on my LinkedIn to read that. It's called Carbon Capture USA. They are the award winner from the WEF. But they're going to put up this monstrosity and sell and tax our oil companies. Because why not, right? We got
I've got to give credit to Give Me Liberty there. I think he's done a few, or she has done a few said quite a few funny things. So we've got to give a shout out here. Let them use Oculus there. Nice little Marie Antoinette riff. I like it.
So silver punched through earlier this morning. Silver punched through strongly through to 50. It was almost 551, but it's backed off right now, and that's what happens when you punch through that psychological number. So it's backed off right now. It's 48.85, but it did punch through an all-time record, but it has to close above that all-time record to really make it official. Intradays don't really count in that. But massive move in silver here. You can see that in the charts, and that's the all-time chart for silver there. So massive move for silver. And then gold, not to be left behind. Gold is our punch through a while back and is, banging on the doors. Off big time this morning, though. There's some profit taking that happens. Whenever you punch through these psychological numbers, profit taking ends up happening. And gold off 80 bucks right now. So again, when it punches through, a lot of the profit takers will jump in. They're just waiting for a moment of weakness because right now it's 39.62 off 80 bucks and then silver off too. Again, like I said, when you punch through a number like that, it's that psychological number and the profit takers come in and technically it will trade lower. But does that mean the run is done? No, this is profit taking and it'll build a little base and then it'll spring from there. We've seen that with Bitcoin a zillion times. I put up the Bitcoin chart here. Again, this is the all-time Bitcoin chart. Again, you can kind of see that what happens there in Bitcoin a little bit lower than the high rate as well. So again, nothing ever goes straight up, but the trend is definitely upwards. How's that? This is a long show today. It's almost 2 hours ago, but again, the Hamas thing, both of us are probably just about sacked here. I do have Janine Herman from MNP talking about the plight of many Canadians right now, close to claiming financial, in really tough shape. But Bitcoin off right now too. It's about 120. Everything's sold off there in the last little bit. As again, like you say, when you punch through numbers, psychological numbers like that, you typically get pullbacks as people profit take, and then they refill and continue higher. Even the Dow is off a bit there too, right? So there you go. Opportunity. These are usually what people use as buying opportunities. They sell at the high, get out, and they play those spreads. And then there's so many AI trading machines right now too. So once one trips the wire, and then they all start tripping it at the same time, and you have this massive flush down. And then as soon as they start to find a floor, it'll kind of like bobble around there. It'll find that floor, and it'll continue higher.
I'm sure that AI investors are more rational than the average retail investors, to be honest. There's just so much irrationality in the stock market, isn't there?
The stock market's all about psychology. It's not about value mostly, but the prices, stuff gets priced in. That's what happens, right? Like, so the market will react usually first. And that's the truth of the matter. The market usually prices events in far before they happen. So there you go. The market doesn't lie. It's our show, a long one. And again, peace through strength, and a great day right now. A little more peace on earth would be great. And then Trump has one more to solve that he promised, so he's late on it. So, you know, the guy doesn't sleep, like Caitlin Collins from CNN says. The guy doesn't sleep, so what are you waiting for? I'm pretty sure he's getting close on that one. I'm going to put dollars to donuts he gets that one solved before the end of the year. Anybody wants to?
Well, just the fact, if this is now over, or if this is even temporarily solved, that it will add pressure to Russia and Ukraine as well, won't it? It's just the nature of things.
The more complex machine is they're going to get all that buying anyway, and then there is going to be pressure on Putin to join this economy too, and I think that it's going to be there will be some pressure, and I think Trump will. And he's at the center of all these, and whether Anita Anand pretends to be the center of attention and making all these grand statements, and really, if they just would be honest with themselves, you know, we'd be in a better place. Figure out why capital's fleeing Canada. Figure that out. Just figure that out. And you can, and the rest of you cabinet ministers, just ask Mark Carney why he left, and figure out how to get him back. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the answer is right there before you. He did it himself. He did it himself. Why did he leave? Why did he take his assets south? Why? There's the answer.
Yeah.
Fix it. Fix it. Stop listening to the CBC, for God's sakes. Anyway, I'm back at 11 with Janine Herman. I have a few things that I think I have. Don't I have Gavin Dew later in the day as well? I have Gavin Dew at 3 too. So there you go. Busy day.
That's a good one.
I'm gonna have to get some water. We got no budget here. I have to get my own water. I can't scream at anybody. Could somebody walk in the background so I could yell at them?
Get out of my shot.
Like that's, you know, just to be a liberal for a day. Wow. What an experience, eh? Screaming at people, shrieking at people.
Just to be a bad person for a day, really.
Oh, there you go.
Terrible.
Well, I think if we could just hire some liberals here to come work here, and they could put their mask on and they could work in the background, we could just screech at them. Anyway, that's it. That's the show for today. We're back tomorrow morning, Friday. It'll be great. We'll be great. We'll be here. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.